Hi guys, Nia here again. We're about to get the answers for this week's questions that you've posted on Mr. Granger's interactive series.
Brigadier, the first question this week regards the security sector, of course with a bit of preamble so that the question can properly be understood. I know the police force has its duties to perform in an effort to protect these citizens, but sometimes the manner in which they perform these duties is unacceptable. For example, a motor vehicle may be stopped, its occupants asked to disembark, and then the vehicle and the occupants are searched without their consent or the presentation of a warrant by the officers. When you highlight these infringements to the officers, they become annoyed and even more hostile towards you, the citizen whom they swore to protect. How would you rectify such an issue that violates our constitutional right to own, possess, and protect our private property?
Well, there are many questions in that one question. First of all, we'd have to deal with the question of the law, and I would agree with you that the law does not permit the police to willy-nilly stop and search persons going about their business. There are no grounds for suspicion. It is not as though the person might be speeding or about to commit an offense. So I think that one has to be rectified. The second thing is that police training needs to be put on a sound footing, and many of the police are simply badly trained and badly supervised. And I think this is the reason why some of them misbehave, as being shown here. In the third instance, we need to remember that the police should be supervised by persons who themselves could punish the police for misbehaving. And it is only in circumstances in which the police feel that they can behave with impunity that they will do this sort of thing and alienate or irritate the general population. So I would agree with you that the police need to be better trained, they need to be better supervised, and they need to be punished when they commit these infringements, because it is more than a nuisance. There are circumstances, and I'm not volunteering information here, of course, there are circumstances in which police could deliberately and repeatedly harass drivers and motorists as a shakedown. And in order to avoid being shaken down, particularly when you're in a hurry or you have some business to attend to, you give the police maybe some frack. And I hope it's nothing like that. But you're quite right, it is an abuse, and the police need to be corrected.
The next question, sir, comes from a Guyanese living in the UK. As the president of Guyana, would you, with assistance from the ABC countries, be willing to persecute present and past ministers, their family members, friends, and business partners?
Well, I wouldn't persecute, I would prosecute in the courts of law. It is my view that the involvement of the ABC countries, that's America, Britain, and Canada, and the EU, the European Union, are not necessary. Well, their involvement is not necessary. What is necessary is good policing. What is necessary is the enforcement of law. And if, to any extent, the so-called ABCE countries are involved, it should be to provide training prior to the event. It should be to provide the resources. It should be to provide maybe technical personnel to help the police to reach a certain standard of performance. I don't intend to seek the assistance unless, of course, they are fugitives from the law. If persons who've committed offenses, for example, financial crimes, seek refuge in one of these countries, naturally, you may want to approach the governments to have them extradited and brought back to Guyana. But in the normal run of things, I don't believe that the involvement of the ABC countries is necessary. But the second part of the question is this: yes, if people have committed crimes, they should be prosecuted. And there's no question of an amnesty, particularly if those are economic crimes, financial crimes. And I would say yes, people can be prosecuted, but I would see that Guyana will sooner rather than later develop the capability to conduct these prosecutions on its own. We don't have any interest in a witch hunt, but we would like to see the country properly managed, and we would be enforcing the law in order to send a message to people who have been breaking the law that times have changed and we will no longer tolerate the breaches of the law that we see occurring now under the People's Progressive Party civic administration.
And a follow-up to that, sir, would you be willing to set up commissions of inquiries so as to return the monies and assets that were sometimes blatantly taken from the state and from its bank accounts?
Well, the simple answer is yes, certainly. And as you may know, in the National Assembly, I have brought motions which have become resolutions of the National Assembly for about 5 commissions of inquiry, and I will continue to do so. Some people have criticized me for doing so because they feel that these inquiries are never going to be held under the PPP. But when we go into office, we're going to have a list of inquiries, and yes, prosecutions will take place. Inquiries will be conducted because that is the only way you can accumulate the evidence needed to prosecute crooks.
Okay. The next question comes from Darren John. Do you think vehicles are no longer a luxury but a necessity? Don't you think that there's a need to reduce the tax so it can be more affordable to all? It's basically a 2-in-1.
Well, I wouldn't like to answer that question without looking at the numbers. The situation in Guyana now is that the existing roads are inadequate for the large number of vehicles being added every single month. And we need to look at some ways of relieving the congestion. I've been traveling very frequently over the last week, even on the East Coast, which was normally a reasonably clear roadway. But now there are huge traffic jams at Sparndam and elsewhere. The embankment road was worse. There was a huge traffic jam, like 20 minutes. This was unheard of because there's so many cars on the road. This does not mean that individuals are not entitled to cars, but it points in the direction of more public transport. So when school children are going home or when workers are going home, they could depend on a public transport system. So let's walk on 2 legs. Let us allow people, individuals who want to own cars. But those persons who would prefer to leave their car at home and travel to work or travel to school or go to their place of entertainment with public transport, the public transport should be available. And right now, I think there are far too many vehicles on the limited number of roads. Of course, a long-term solution would be to build more roads. But right now, I don't think that is a possibility from a financial point of view. We certainly need, for example, better bridges, over the Demerara Road, because that is something of a bottleneck in the mornings and the evenings. So there are lots of things we could examine in our transport system and our road transport system. And lowering the taxes for motor vehicles is just one way, but we must look at the other ways of easing the transport problem.
Okay. And the final question this week, also from Mr. Darren John. The private sector organizations, when they are tabulating the vacation for their staff, weekends and holidays are not included in their tabulation for leave, but for the government entities, they are included. Is there anything that can be done to change this robbery?
Yes, much could be done. A Partnership for National Unity has taken the stand that relations or negotiations between employers and employees should be conducted in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement that exists between them. And I would say yes, government employees should not have to have their weekends computed as part of their leave. And I think it's quite reasonable, and they would have gotten the weekends anyway, so why consider that as leave? But it is a point for the unions to fight, and yes, we will support the unions in fighting the employers, in this case the government, to ensure that leave is granted on similar conditions as in the private sector.
For you to be a part of this interactive series, all you need to do is go to Mr. Granger's Facebook page and post your questions on his timeline.